After a single dad fixed her car for free, she said, "I'm the judge for your case tomorrow." She usually woke up with a mild sense of dread, thinking about the long day ahead, meetings, and the endless emails that awaited her at work. But today felt different. Today, she had an important presentation that could change the course of her career. Her nerves were already on edge as she sipped her coffee, trying to steady her hands. She double-checked her notes for the umpteenth time, adjusted her blazer and glanced at the clock. She was running late. She rushed out of her apartment and slid into her small, silver car parked on the curb. The engine sputtered slightly, but she ignored it, blaming the early morning chill. As she pulled out of the parking lot, she felt a sudden jerk. Her car made a strange noise, a coughing, rattling sound that grew louder with every passing second. Panic began to bubble in her chest. "Not today," she muttered under her breath. By the time she reached the main street, the car had completely stopped. Anna tried turning the key, but the engine refused to start. Her heart sank. She was stranded in the middle of the morning rush, with cars honking impatiently behind her. She tried calling a tow service, but with the heavy traffic and distance to her office, it would take hours for anyone to arrive. Her hands trembled slightly as she gripped the steering wheel, feeling hopeless. She stepped out of the car and inspected the engine, even though she had no idea what she was looking for. She was about to call her manager and explain that she wouldn't make it when she heard a friendly voice behind her. "Need some help?" Anna turned to see a man in his mid-30s walking toward her. He had an easy smile and a calm presence that immediately made her feel a little less stressed. He was wearing casual work clothes and there was a smudge of grease on his hands, something that told Anna he was no stranger to fixing things. I, I think my car broke down," Anna admitted, embarrassed. "I have no idea what happened. I'm already late for work and now this." The man nodded understandingly. "Looks like your battery's fine. Let me take a look." Before Anna could protest or offer money, he opened the hood and began inspecting the engine. He worked quietly but efficiently, as if he had done this 100 times before. Anna watched in awe, feeling a mix of relief and curiosity. "You're really good at this," she said finally, trying to break the silence. He smiled without looking up. "I've had a lot of practice. My daughter loves cars too, so we spend a lot of time tinkering together. It's fun." Anna's eyes softened. "That's actually really nice. It's rare to meet someone who enjoys helping others so much." The man chuckled. "I just do what I can. Don't worry, we'll get you back on the road in no time." She couldn't help but notice the gentle way he worked, even with the engine covered in grease. There was patience in every movement, a sense of calm determination that made her heart rate slow just a little. Anna often felt that the world was moving too fast, with people too busy to notice the struggles of others. Yet here was this stranger, taking time out of his day to help someone he didn't even know. Minutes passed, but Anna didn't feel impatient. In fact, she found herself strangely captivated by the man's focus and care. He finally wiped his hands on a rag and closed the hood. "Try it now," he said. Anna turned the key, holding her breath. The engine roared to life as if nothing had ever been wrong. Relief washed over her like a wave. "Oh my goodness, it's working. Thank you so much." The man smiled warmly. "No problem, I'm just glad I could help." Anna opened her purse, ready to offer him some money for his time, but he waved her off. "Seriously, it's fine. Just be careful on the road, and maybe check the engine once in a while." She hesitated, amazed by his generosity. "Are you sure? I mean, I can't just let you do this for free." He shook his head. "Really, I don't need anything, just pay it forward sometime." Anna couldn't stop smiling. "I will, I promise." She got back into her car, still staring at him as he waved goodbye. He watched her drive off, making sure she didn't have any issues before returning to his own life. Anna felt a strange sense of warmth in her chest. It was amazing how a simple act of kindness could make someone's entire day feel brighter. As she drove, She couldn't stop thinking about him. Who was this man who had stopped what he was doing to help a complete stranger? How could someone be so genuinely kind without expecting anything in return? Her mind wandered, but she also reminded herself she had work to focus on. Today was too important to dwell on thoughts of strangers, no matter how inspiring. Still, his smile lingered in her mind. She imagined what his life might be like, raising a child, working hard, finding moments to help others. Anna realized that people like him made the world a better place, quietly, without seeking recognition or reward. She wondered how many other strangers he had helped over the years, without anyone ever knowing. By the time she reached her office, Anna felt calmer, more centered, almost as if the world was reminding her that there were still good people around. She parked her car and walked inside, carrying with her a small but powerful reminder. Sometimes kindness came when you least expected it, and sometimes it came from the most unexpected places. Little did Anna know, this brief encounter was about to resurface in a way she could never have imagined. The morning sun shone through the large windows of the courthouse as Anna Reynolds walked down the polished marble hallway. She had worked hard to reach this point in her career, and every step she took reminded her of the responsibilities she carried. Today, she was scheduled to preside over a minor civil case, a property dispute between neighbors. Normally, she would focus solely on the facts, the law, and maintaining professional distance. But as she reached the courtroom, she felt a flicker of something she couldn't quite explain. The moment she stepped inside, her eyes fell on the man standing in the defendant's corner. He looked familiar. At first, she thought it was just the ordinary stress of the morning playing tricks on her. But then the memory hit her like a sudden wave. This was the same man who had stopped to help her with her broken car yesterday. Thomas Hayes. He glanced up as well, and recognition flashed across his face. His expression changed from neutral to surprise and then to a polite smile. "Good morning," he said, his voice calm but carrying a hint of curiosity. Anna's heart skipped a beat. "Good morning," she replied, trying to maintain her usual composed tone. Inside, however, a whirlwind of thoughts spun through her mind. What were the chances of seeing him here, of all places? She had just met him yesterday, and now fate had placed him directly in front of her in a courtroom. Thomas didn't seem to notice any awkwardness. He straightened his posture and quietly reviewed the papers in front of him. There was something about him that made Anna pause. He carried himself with quiet dignity, and there was no hint of arrogance, even in a courtroom that could make many feel small or nervous. As the court clerk called the session to order, Anna reminded herself that her role as a judge came first. She had to be fair, impartial, and professional, no matter her personal feelings. She cleared her throat and began the proceedings, reading the case details aloud. The dispute was over a small piece of property, a corner of land that both parties claimed as theirs. Neither side had proper legal representation, which made her role even more important. Thomas spoke first, explaining his side of the story in a clear, honest, and respectful manner. He admitted that he had made some mistakes, but he also emphasized that he had tried to resolve the matter peacefully before it escalated to court. His tone was humble, and he seemed genuinely concerned about finding a fair solution rather than winning the case. Anna listened intently. She had seen many defendants in her career who were defensive, angry, or trying to manipulate the system. But Thomas was different. His honesty and humility reminded her of the man who had helped her with her car just yesterday. It was a strange, almost surreal feeling. Here was a stranger who had shown her kindness, now standing in a legal struggle before her. As the hearing continued, Anna noticed something else about Thomas. He was not just polite, he seemed genuinely anxious about doing the right thing. He listened carefully to every question, considered his answers, and never tried to shift blame unfairly. There was a sense of integrity in the way he carried himself that Anna couldn't ignore. During a brief recess, Anna found herself stepping into a quiet corner of the courtroom, hoping for a moment to collect her thoughts. She knew she had to maintain her professional judgment, but she couldn't shake the memory of yesterday's encounter. She remembered his kind smile, the way he had refused to accept payment, and the calm patience he had shown while fixing her car. It was rare, she thought, to meet someone who genuinely cared about others without expecting anything in return. She had spent years observing people in high-pressure situations, and she knew that character often revealed itself in small, everyday actions. Thomas had shown her who he was without even trying. When the session resumed, the other party spoke, presenting their side of the dispute. Anna listened carefully, taking notes, asking questions when necessary, and ensuring that both sides had a fair chance to be heard. But even as she remained professional, her mind occasionally drifted to Thomas's character, wondering how such a man ended up in this legal conflict. She reminded herself to stay focused. As a judge, she couldn't let personal impressions influence her decisions. The law was clear and her duty was to apply it fairly. Yet the human element of the case, the sincerity, the honesty, the effort to do right, was impossible to ignore. Thomas concluded his explanation with a soft-spoken request. "Your Honor, I'm not looking for anything unfair. I just want a solution that respects everyone involved. I've tried my best to resolve this without conflict, and I hope the court can help us find a fair outcome." Anna felt a pang of empathy. His words were simple, yet they carried a weight that went beyond legal arguments. Here was a man who worked hard, cared for others, and believed in fairness. She knew she had to balance her role as a judge with her awareness of his character. After the hearing, Anna took a moment to review the case files in private. She considered the legal facts, the property boundaries, and the evidence presented. But she also reflected on what she had observed in the courtroom, the respect, honesty, and effort Thomas had shown. She knew that her ruling needed to address both the letter of the law and the spirit of fairness. As she worked through the details, Anna realized something important. Justice was not just about following rules. It was about understanding people, their intentions, and the impact of her decisions on their lives. Thomas had reminded her of that truth in a way that was both unexpected and powerful. Meanwhile, Thomas returned to the hallway outside the courtroom, waiting patiently for the session to continue. He seemed calm, but there was a quiet tension in his posture. He hadn't anticipated this situation, yet he faced it with dignity and patience. He didn't complain, argue, or try to manipulate circumstances. He simply waited, prepared to face whatever outcome the court decided. Anna looked up from her papers and saw him standing there. She caught his eye and offered a small, professional smile. He returned it, a subtle nod of acknowledgement, and then turned back to review his own notes. The brief connection reminded Anna of the humanity behind every legal case, the people who were affected, their struggles, and the choices they made. As the morning turned into afternoon, Anna continued listening to both sides, asking clarifying questions and making careful notes. Every time she glanced at Thomas, she felt a renewed sense of respect for him. She realized that a single act of kindness, like fixing a stranger's car without asking for anything in return, could reveal the true nature of a person. By the time the hearing concluded for the day, Anna felt a mixture of relief and reflection. She had seen the law in action, but she had also witnessed a deeper truth about human character. Thomas Hayes was more than just a defendant. He was a man who carried responsibility, integrity, and kindness in his everyday life. As the courtroom emptied, Thomas approached Anna briefly. "Thank you for listening carefully today," he said sincerely. "I know the law is complicated, but I appreciate how fair you've been." Anna nodded, feeling a strange warmth in her chest. "You've been honest and respectful, Thomas. That makes my job easier, and it shows a lot about your character." He smiled softly and walked away, leaving Anna to gather her thoughts. She realized that this case, which might have seemed ordinary on the surface, had become something extraordinary. It was a reminder that people's true nature often shows in unexpected moments, and that a small act of kindness could create ripples far beyond the initial gesture. As Anna left the courthouse that evening, she thought about the strange twist of fate that had brought Thomas into her life twice in such a short span. She couldn't predict what would happen next, but she knew that she had met someone who would leave a lasting impression on her. And deep down, she suspected that their story was far from over. The next morning, Thomas Hayes returned to his routine life, yet the memory of the courtroom and the woman judge lingered in his mind. He couldn't quite explain why, but there was something about her presence that stayed with him. It wasn't just her professional authority or her calm demeanor. It was the way she had listened, truly listened, to what he had to say. In a world where many people barely cared about anyone else's struggles, her attention felt rare and meaningful. Thomas got up early as usual, preparing breakfast for his young daughter, Emily. She was a lively 6-year-old with bright eyes and endless curiosity. As he packed her school bag and tied her shoes, he thought about the previous day. The courthouse had been intimidating, the legal language confusing, and yet the judge's presence had made him feel seen and respected. Emily watched him silently, tilting her head. "Daddy, are you thinking about that man again?" she asked innocently, referring to the stranger who had helped them with the car yesterday. Thomas laughed softly. "No, sweetheart, I'm thinking about something else," he said, ruffling her hair. He didn't want her to know that he was thinking about the judge. There was something private about the way he felt, a mixture of gratitude, respect, and curiosity. After dropping Emily at school, Thomas drove to work. His mind kept returning to the courtroom. He remembered the way the judge had nodded as he spoke, the way she had maintained calm authority without ever making him feel small. Most judges, he thought, wouldn't even glance at someone like him twice. And yet she had. That thought gave him a strange sense of reassurance, even though he knew the case was not yet resolved. Meanwhile, Anna Reynolds sat in her office, reviewing the notes from the previous day's hearing. She had spent hours poring over the case files, legal precedents, and testimonies. But more than that, she found herself thinking about Thomas Hayes. It was unusual for her to be so affected by a defendant, but she couldn't deny the impression he had made on her. His honesty, patience, and humility had stood out in a way that few people ever did. Anna reminded herself to remain professional. She was a judge, after all, and emotions had no place in a courtroom. Yet she also recognized that law wasn't just about rules and paperwork. It was about people, their choices, and the impact those choices had on their lives. Thomas had shown her a side of humanity that was refreshing and rare. As the day progressed, Anna received several emails and phone calls, but her mind often drifted back to the case. She considered the legal facts carefully, weighing both sides, but she couldn't help but think about Thomas as a person. There was a difference, she realized, between someone who was technically in the wrong and someone who was morally upright. Thomas fell into the latter category. The next court session began with both parties present once again. Anna took her seat at the bench, her expression neutral, though inside she was quietly evaluating the situation. Thomas approached with the same respectful demeanor as before, speaking clearly and honestly. He seemed anxious but composed, aware that the outcome of the case could affect his family. Anna began the session by asking clarifying questions, ensuring that all evidence and testimony were fully understood. The other party spoke again, presenting their arguments and supporting documents. The tension in the courtroom grew slightly, but Thomas remained calm. He answered every question with care, never raising his voice, never showing frustration. Anna watched him carefully. His composure and sincerity were evident in every word, in every gesture. She could see that he genuinely wanted to resolve the dispute fairly. There was a quiet strength in him, a sense of responsibility that went beyond legal obligations. He wasn't just defending his property, he was defending his integrity. During a short recess, Anna stepped outside the courtroom to clear her mind. She walked down the hallway, trying to maintain a professional distance, but her thoughts kept returning to Thomas. She considered the significance of his actions, both in court and the day before with her car. Here was a man who had helped a stranger selflessly, and now he was facing a legal challenge with honesty and patience. She realized that her role as a judge was not just to interpret the law, but to recognize the character and intentions of those involved. It was a delicate balance. She had to remain impartial, yet she could not ignore the human element that made every case unique. Thomas's sincerity had left a mark on her, a reminder that people's true nature often revealed itself in unexpected ways. When the session resumed, Anna carefully guided the discussion toward possible solutions. She encouraged both parties to consider compromises and alternatives that would satisfy the legal requirements while also promoting fairness. Thomas listened intently, nodding at each suggestion, and offered his own ideas respectfully. His willingness to collaborate impressed Anna. She noted how rare it was to encounter someone who approached conflict not with anger or entitlement, but with a genuine desire to find a fair outcome. Thomas exemplified patience, humility, and practical thinking, qualities that were often overlooked in the courtroom. As the hours passed, Anna found herself reflecting on broader lessons. The law was important, but it was only one aspect of justice. True justice also considered human behavior, intentions, and the ripple effects of decisions on real lives. Thomas's case was teaching her something she hadn't fully realized. Fairness and integrity mattered just as much as legal rules. Meanwhile, Thomas waited calmly, reviewing the notes he had made and preparing to respond thoughtfully to the judge's questions. He thought about Emily and how the outcome of this case could affect their home life. Despite the pressure, he remained composed, guided by his principles rather than fear or anger. When the hearing finally ended for the day, Anna made a point to speak briefly with Thomas. "You've been very honest and cooperative throughout this process," she said quietly, careful not to overstep professional boundaries. "It's clear that you care about doing the right thing." Thomas nodded, gratitude evident in his eyes. "Thank you, Your Honor. I've tried my best. I just want to resolve this without causing more trouble for anyone." Anna gave him a small smile. "Your effort hasn't gone unnoticed. That matters more than you realize." Thomas left the courtroom with a renewed sense of hope. He felt that, despite the uncertainty of the case, he had been treated fairly and with respect. It was a reminder that even in difficult situations, integrity and honesty could make a difference. As Anna returned to her office, she reflected on the unusual connection that had formed between her and Thomas. It was not personal in the traditional sense, but it was real and meaningful. She realized that life often had a way of presenting lessons in unexpected forms, through strangers, through brief encounters, and through moments of shared humanity. That evening, as she reviewed the case once more, Anna felt a quiet sense of determination. She wanted to ensure that her ruling would not only follow the law, but also reflect fairness and understanding. She knew that the decisions she made would have lasting consequences, and she was committed to honoring both the legal and human aspects of the case. Thomas, meanwhile, returned home to Emily, preparing dinner and helping her with homework. The stress of the courtroom seemed to fade in the warmth of their small home. He thought about the judge and the fairness she had shown. It gave him hope, not just for the outcome of the case, but for the belief that good people could be recognized and treated with respect. In that quiet evening, both Anna and Thomas realized something important. Life was a mixture of challenges, unexpected encounters, and moments of genuine human kindness. Their paths had crossed in a way that neither could have anticipated, and the experience was shaping them in ways beyond the immediate legal matter. Anna looked out of her office window at the city lights, thinking about how small gestures could leave lasting impressions. She remembered the kindness Thomas had shown her with her car, and she understood that moments like these revealed the true character of a person. Thomas, in his modest kitchen, thought about how important it was to act with integrity, even when no one was watching. He reflected on how small, selfless actions could create trust, respect, and opportunities in ways that were unexpected but meaningful. Both of them in their separate worlds carried the memory of each other, not as a distraction, but as a reminder that humanity, kindness, and fairness were values worth holding on to, even in the midst of life's challenges. And so the story continued, two lives intertwined briefly by fate, guided by integrity, and shaped by the quiet, powerful lessons of respect, honesty, and the unexpected ways that people could touch each other's lives. The following morning, Thomas Hayes woke up feeling the familiar rhythm of responsibility. His small apartment was filled with the soft sound of Emily getting ready for school. He moved quietly, trying not to wake her too early, yet enjoying the simple joy of their routine. Emily hummed a little tune as she brushed her teeth, completely unaware of the whirlwind of thoughts in her father's mind. Thomas had spent the previous night thinking about the courtroom and the woman judge who had left such a strong impression on him. He wasn't sure why he kept replaying their encounter. It wasn't romantic, not in the traditional sense. At least he didn't think so. It was more about respect, gratitude, and the unusual sense of understanding he felt from someone he had only met in a professional setting. Her demeanor, her attention to fairness, and the way she had treated him with dignity despite his status as a defendant were qualities he hadn't expected. It left him feeling hopeful, a feeling he didn't often experience in the chaos of single parenthood. After dropping Emily at school, Thomas drove to work, replaying the events of the past 2 days in his mind. He remembered how carefully he had explained the situation in court, how he had tried to remain calm despite the tension, and how the judge had listened attentively. Her thoughtful questions had challenged him, yes, but they had also made him feel respected. For someone dealing with legal difficulties for the first time, that respect meant more than words could express. Meanwhile, Anna Reynolds arrived at the courthouse feeling the weight of her responsibilities pressing down on her. Today's session was crucial. She needed to review the previous testimony and make careful notes before the next hearing. Her mind, however, kept drifting back to Thomas Hayes. She had seen many people in her courtroom, but few had left such a clear impression. His honesty, patience, and humility stood out like a beacon in a sea of complaints, arguments, and legal disputes. She reminded herself firmly, she was a judge. Personal feelings could not and should not influence her decisions, but she also knew that law wasn't only about rules on paper. It was about understanding the people behind those rules, their intentions, and the impact decisions could have on their lives. She found herself reflecting on Thomas not as a defendant, but as a person, a hardworking, honest man trying to do right by his family despite the challenges he faced. The courtroom was bustling when the hearing resumed. Thomas arrived early, reviewing his notes quietly, showing a level of preparation that impressed the court staff. Anna took her seat at the bench, observing him as he adjusted his papers and straightened his posture. He seemed calm, but she could sense a subtle tension beneath the surface, the kind of tension that comes from knowing the stakes are high and the outcome uncertain. The session began with Anna asking detailed questions, probing both parties to clarify facts and uncover any possible compromises. Thomas answered with precision and respect, never raising his voice or showing frustration. His demeanor was steady, measured, and cooperative. It was clear that he wasn't trying to manipulate the situation. Instead, he was genuinely looking for a fair resolution. Anna felt a quiet admiration for him, though she kept her professional demeanor intact. She noticed how he listened attentively, absorbed every question, and responded thoughtfully. Unlike many defendants she had seen, Thomas seemed guided not by fear, anger, or self-interest, but by integrity. Every word he spoke reflected the principles he lived by: honesty, patience, and respect. During a short recess, Anna stepped outside the courtroom to gather her thoughts. The sun was bright and the courthouse gardens were quiet, offering a moment of reflection. She considered the significance of what she had observed. Here was a man who had faced challenges with honesty, who had treated others with respect, and who had demonstrated patience and humility in a situation that could easily have led to conflict. She also thought about her brief encounter with him yesterday, when he had fixed her car without expecting payment. That small act of kindness had left a lasting impression on her, reminding her that character often reveals itself in unexpected ways. Anna realized that the same qualities he had shown in helping a stranger were now evident in his approach to the courtroom. It was a rare and meaningful alignment of personal values and actions. When the hearing resumed, Anna began guiding the discussion toward possible solutions. She encouraged both parties to explore compromises, emphasizing fairness and practical outcomes. Thomas listened carefully, offering suggestions respectfully and considering alternatives that would satisfy legal requirements while maintaining equity. It was during this discussion that a subtle tension began to rise in the courtroom. The other party was more rigid, insisting on their claim without acknowledging Thomas's efforts or intentions. Anna could see that Thomas was trying to find a balance, honoring the law, respecting the other party's rights, and remaining true to his own principles. She admired the way he handled the pressure, quietly navigating the conflict without raising his voice or compromising his integrity. Anna felt a growing sense of responsibility. She realized that the decision she would make was more than a legal ruling. It was a judgment that would affect a family, their livelihood, and their sense of fairness in the world. It was a reminder that justice was not only about rules, but also about understanding, empathy, and recognition of human character. As the session progressed, Thomas shared a personal reflection, explaining how he had tried to resolve the dispute amicably before bringing it to court. "I didn't want this to escalate," he said quietly, his eyes earnest. "I just want a solution that respects everyone involved." His sincerity was evident, and it resonated deeply with Anna. She paused for a moment, taking note of the significance of his words. Here was a man who had shown care, responsibility, and patience not only in court, but in the small, everyday actions of his life. He had reminded her of something fundamental, that true justice often requires more than legal knowledge. It requires understanding, empathy, and the ability to see the humanity in others. The afternoon wore on and the courtroom grew quiet as both parties considered the possibilities. Thomas remained steady, his focus on finding a fair outcome never wavering. Anna observed him closely, noting how he balanced honesty, humility, and strategic thinking. It was rare, she thought, to encounter someone who embodied such a combination of integrity and practicality. When the hearing finally concluded for the day, Anna took a brief moment to address Thomas directly. "You've approached this process with honesty and patience," she said softly, careful to maintain professional boundaries. "It's clear that you care about doing the right thing, and that matters in ways you may not realize." Thomas nodded, gratitude evident in his expression. "Thank you, Your Honor. I've tried my best. I just want to find a fair solution for everyone." As he left the courtroom, Anna returned to her office, reflecting on the unusual connection that had developed between them. It wasn't a personal connection in the traditional sense, but it was meaningful. She realized that sometimes life presents lessons in unexpected ways, through strangers, through fleeting encounters, and through moments of shared understanding. For Thomas, the day ended with a quiet sense of hope. Despite the challenges, he felt that fairness and integrity had been acknowledged, and that gave him reassurance. He returned home to Emily, who greeted him with a wide smile and a hug that melted away the stress of the day. As he cooked dinner and helped her with her homework, he thought about the judge and the fairness she had shown. It was a reminder that honesty, patience, and kindness could make a difference, even in situations that seemed complicated and overwhelming. That night, both Anna and Thomas reflected on the lessons of the day. Anna considered the delicate balance of law and empathy, realizing that true justice required more than rules. It required recognition of human character. Thomas thought about integrity, humility, and the importance of approaching challenges with honesty and respect. In different ways, both felt the impact of their brief interactions and the unexpected connection they had formed. It was a reminder that life often weaves small, meaningful encounters into larger lessons, shaping perspectives and influencing decisions. And as the night fell, both carried the thought that the story was far from over. The final resolution of the case was yet to come, and with it, the opportunity to honor fairness, integrity, and the quiet power of human kindness. The following morning, Anna Reynolds woke up with a sense of focus and determination. The day of the final hearing had arrived, the day she would deliver a ruling that could change the lives of those involved. She reviewed the case notes carefully, weighing both the legal aspects and the human elements she had observed. She knew that the decision needed to be fair, impartial, and, if possible, compassionate. As she prepared to leave for the courthouse, she reflected on the past few days. The encounter with Thomas Hayes, the single dad who had fixed her car without asking for anything in return, had made her see the importance of character in a way she had rarely experienced. His honesty, humility, and determination to act fairly had left a lasting impression. Meanwhile, Thomas was preparing for the hearing as well. He had spent the night reviewing his notes, ensuring he could present his points clearly and calmly. But beyond the facts and evidence, he was also thinking about the judge, remembering the calm authority with which she had conducted the previous hearings. He couldn't deny that there was something unusual about this situation, how a brief encounter with a stranger could have such an impact on both their lives. As Thomas drove to the courthouse with Emily safely on her way to school with her grandmother, he felt a quiet resolve. No matter the outcome, he would handle the proceedings with integrity. That principle had guided him through life, through work, through raising Emily alone, and now it would guide him through this final hearing. The courtroom was unusually quiet when Anna arrived. She took her seat at the bench, feeling the weight of her responsibility settle on her shoulders. She glanced toward the defendant's corner and saw Thomas, sitting calmly, reviewing his notes one last time. Their eyes met for a brief moment, a silent acknowledgement passing between them. No words were needed. There was mutual respect, a recognition of the unusual journey that had brought them to this point. The session began. Anna listened carefully as both parties presented final arguments. Thomas spoke clearly, politely, and sincerely. He reiterated his desire for fairness, emphasizing his efforts to resolve the dispute without conflict. His words carried weight not only because of the evidence, but because of the character they reflected: honesty, humility, and responsibility. Anna took careful notes, considering every detail. She knew that her ruling would affect not only property lines but also people's lives, their sense of justice, and their trust in the legal system. She thought about the lessons she had learned over the past days. That fairness wasn't just about following the law, but also about understanding the intentions and character of those involved. The other party presented their final points, insisting on strict adherence to the property claim. Their tone was firm but not unreasonable. Anna noted their perspective, aware that every party deserved consideration. But she also knew that Thomas's approach had shown a rare blend of honesty, cooperation, and respect that deserved recognition. After a short recess, Anna called the court to order again. She cleared her throat and began delivering her ruling. Her voice was calm, measured, and authoritative. She explained the legal reasoning clearly, citing relevant laws and precedents. But she also went a step further, acknowledging the human qualities that had played a role in the proceedings. In this case, she began, the court recognizes not only the facts and legal evidence presented, but also the integrity and sincerity demonstrated by the parties involved. Mr. Hayes has shown patience, honesty, and a willingness to find a fair resolution without conflict. These qualities are important in both legal and personal contexts and have influenced the court's decision. Thomas listened attentively, his hands folded in front of him. He felt a mixture of nervousness and hope, aware that the final decision could change his family's future. Anna continued, carefully outlining the compromise that would satisfy legal requirements while honoring fairness. She explained how both parties would share responsibility in maintaining the property boundaries, with clear agreements to prevent future disputes. The resolution was balanced, reasonable, and reflected the principle of fairness she valued so deeply. As she concluded, Anna looked at Thomas directly. This ruling acknowledges not only the legal facts but also the character and integrity that Mr. Hayes has shown throughout this process. The court hopes that this outcome will encourage cooperation, respect, and understanding in all future interactions. Thomas felt a deep sense of relief wash over him. He nodded respectfully, understanding the careful consideration that had gone into the ruling. "Thank you, Your Honor," he said sincerely. "I appreciate the fairness and thoughtfulness you've shown." Anna returned his nod, a small smile forming on her face. She felt a quiet satisfaction in delivering a decision that upheld the law while recognizing the human qualities that made it meaningful. She knew that justice was not only about rules, but about understanding, empathy, and the respect we show each other. The other party also expressed gratitude for the clarity and fairness of the ruling. The tension that had filled the courtroom over the past days began to dissipate, replaced by a sense of resolution and mutual understanding. It was a rare moment in the courtroom, when law, fairness, and human decency aligned. After the session ended, Thomas gathered his papers and prepared to leave. He paused at the door, glancing back at Anna. There was a silent connection between them, a recognition of the unusual journey they had shared over just a few days. He thought about how a simple act, like helping a stranger fix a car, had led to this moment. Anna watched him leave, feeling a quiet sense of fulfillment. She reflected on how life often brought unexpected lessons through ordinary events. A single act of kindness could reveal character, influence decisions, and even leave a lasting impression. She realized that these moments, though brief, shaped our understanding of fairness, integrity, and humanity. Thomas walked out into the sunlight, breathing deeply. The stress and uncertainty of the past days seemed lighter now, replaced by hope and gratitude. He knew that the ruling would protect his family and resolve the dispute fairly, but it also symbolized something greater, recognition of honesty, effort, and integrity. Later that day, Thomas returned home to Emily, who ran into his arms as soon as he opened the door. He smiled, feeling the warmth and love that made every challenge worthwhile. He recounted, in simple terms, that the court had ruled fairly and that their home would be secure. Emily hugged him tightly, unaware of the intricate legal process, but sensing the relief and happiness in her father's voice. Anna, meanwhile, returned to her office to review the completed case file. She felt a sense of quiet pride in her work. The decision had been legally sound, fair, and, most importantly, human. She thought about Thomas and the lesson he had taught her, that integrity, patience, and kindness could leave lasting impressions in ways that transcend ordinary interactions. As evening fell, Both Anna and Thomas reflected on the unusual bond formed through these events. Their connection was not traditional friendship, nor was it romantic. It was something subtler and more profound. It was a mutual recognition of character, a shared understanding of human decency, and an appreciation for the small, meaningful gestures that shape lives. Thomas thought about how a simple act of helping a stranger, a broken car fixed with no expectation of reward, could ripple into unexpected places. It had influenced a judge, impacted a legal case, and created a moment of mutual respect that neither would forget. Anna reflected on the unexpected ways life teaches lessons. She realized that fairness was not just about rules, but about seeing the person behind the facts. A single act of kindness, integrity, or honesty could change perspectives, influence decisions, and leave a lasting impression. In the quiet of the evening, both returned to their routines, carrying with them a sense of fulfillment and understanding. The case had ended, but its lessons lingered. They had learned that human kindness, honesty, and fairness could ripple through life in powerful, unexpected ways. And in the calm after the storm of the courtroom, both Anna and Thomas knew that life was full of surprises. Sometimes, a small act of generosity could lead to profound experiences, teaching lessons that would remain long after the events themselves had passed. They had shared a brief, unexpected journey together, one that reminded them that integrity, empathy, and fairness were not just ideals but practical forces capable of shaping real lives. For Thomas, it was a validation of his efforts to live honestly and responsibly. For Anna, it was a reminder that the law, while crucial, was most meaningful when combined with understanding and recognition of human character. Both walked away changed, carrying a quiet knowledge that small acts, guided by integrity, could indeed make a lasting difference in the world.